Sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage. Now, time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's. Nah, I couldn't be there. Nah, you shouldn't be scared. I'm good at repairs and I'm under each snare. Intangible, bet you didn't think, so I command you to. Panoramic view, look, I'll make it all manageable. Pick and choose, sit and lose, all you different crews. Chicks and dudes who you think is really kicking tunes. Picture you getting down in a picture tube, like you lit the fuse. You think it's fictional, mystical, maybe spiritual hero who appears in you to clear your view when you're too crazy. Lifeless to those, the definition for what life is. Priceless to you because I put you on the hype shit. You like it? Gun smoke, you're righteous with one toke. You're psychic among those, possess you with one go.
I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. Ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on.
11:05 p.m. evening time, Saturday, August 23rd, 2025. Mark Kulak, QSonic.live. What's important with respect to this recent research thread of looking at a few more people that seem to be connected into the weaving of the intellectual dark web story, okay, or family, network, whatever you want to call it. And this is episode, I think, 1,335 or 6, or something like that. It's up there. The reason why I put goggles here is this is a March 22nd, 2020 picture of Bret Weinstein of the intellectual dark web. Of course, you know his brother. You know Bret Weinstein. He has with his wife Heather, they make their own little show and Dark Horse podcast. And his brother Eric is quite visible. His brother Eric is an investment advisor for Peter Thiel, or Peter Thiel's personal fortune. That's noteworthy. I've seen estimates that Bret Weinstein's brother, Eric Weinstein, was worth $100 million or more at one point. I don't know what he's worth right now. He could be worth a lot more. He could be worth very little. Of course, Eric Weinstein has had plenty of opportunities on the Joe Rogan show. And as a matter of fact, Bret Weinstein was on the Joe Rogan show 2 or 3 times before 2020. Maybe even 4. As a matter of fact, Bret Weinstein was on the Joe Rogan show with Jordan Peterson. Holy crap. Tastic. Bret Weinstein and I just said his name. Peterson. See what happens? You know, you reach a point where every once in a while you feel your mind go and you're like, clock's ticking. I only got so many spins around the sun to get the work done. So, Bret Weinstein was on with Jordan Peterson. Holy shop goggles, Batman. Let's go to Wikipedia here. Jordan Peterson. There's Jordan Peterson looking all intellectual. Yes, Jordan Peterson is all over social media. Yes, Jordan Peterson is part of the club. All right. I haven't looked at his whole platform. I'm not going to. You kind of know who Jordan Peterson is. So he was born and raised in Alberta, so he's Canadian, University of Alberta, and neuroscience. He's gotten to all kind of gender identity and expression, gender pronouns. I mean, here's the thing. Anti-woke is not a way to define one's existence. And if the conservative group in the United States or anywhere in the world is going to make identify itself as not woke, you're losing. What does that mean? You're not woke. Does that make 7 a great number because it's not 4? I don't understand this. There's more to defining oneself and having values than not being something. I don't want to get too far off the track here, but you'll notice that Eric Weinstein and Bret Weinstein, a lot of the other fake people on the right, in particular, this meathead here, Joe Rogan, who in this video here is interviewing a Melissa Chen, who I've introduced in the last few shows. And this is really a show about Melissa Chen, what I'm doing right now here. So they all so focus on this gender issue and no woke bad. What does that mean? And who cares? How is that a political movement? To just do what you want to do. I don't understand it. Be your own person. Treat people with respect. Give people a little bit of respectful space for whatever it is they need to do. It is important, though, because I believe a plan has been put in place to make it so that the conservative movement, and there is no conservative movement, that's the thing. Conservatives, by definition, don't have movements. The left and the right are both left, and there is no right. That doesn't mean that there's not conservatives who focus inwardly on families and local communities first, but what it means is that is the opposite traits of people that want to get together and create movements and tell everyone what to think. So, because there is no organized right at all, and there never will be, what you see on TV are leftists masquerading as conservatives. Conservatives wouldn't have an anti-woke thing. Hey, you know what? Some people are a little different. Everyone's got challenges. Give people their space, and we're all fine. It's that simple. Why is it funny to tell anti-woke jokes for hours on end? It's so lame and boring. Shouldn't you be focused on yourself and being your own family and the challenges of every day and the things that affect just about everyone? It's so lame. It's important. I don't want to get too far off on a rant on this, but oh boy, all of these people, including Melissa Chen, they all promote this. Oh, the woke is bad, and you got to be anti-woke. And look at my catalog. I mean, every once in a while, I'll tell a little off-color joke once in a while, but it is so intellectually unstimulating and boring, flaccid to just tell those types of jokes for hours on end. Give it a break. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so Bret Weinstein, goggle guy. Bret Weinstein was on Joe Rogan 3 or 4 times before 2020. That's a red flag. That's something to notice, okay? Now, one of those appearances, I think at least one was with his wife. Okay, that's fine. It's kind of cute that they do things as a couple like that. The other one where he's not alone, he's with Jordan Peterson. Now, whatever you think about Jordan Peterson, let's look at his profile here. And in 2022, Peterson became chancellor of the newly launched Ralston College, a private, unaccredited liberal arts college in Savannah, Georgia. His various lectures and conversations, available mainly on YouTube and podcasts, have garnered millions of views and plays. All right, I'm not too familiar with Ralston. I might have heard of it before. Whatever, there's so many colleges. Let's look at this Ralston College. It is a private, unaccredited liberal arts college in Savannah, Georgia. It describes itself as being dedicated to freedom of thought and speech and is associated with prominent conservative figures like Stephen Blackwood and Jordan Peterson as chancellor, and funding from conservatives like Paul Marshall. Paul Marshall is a billionaire investor who is said to be the Peter Thiel of England. Now, I've also heard him to be like a Steve Bannon of England. He's worth a lot of money, billions, I think. He's actually bought The Spectator. He's the owner of Unheard. He's the co-owner of GB News, which means he's also a co-owner of Sky News. And you know what else he is? In addition to that, he is one of the top financial sponsors of this Ralston College, which does what? It gives a job to Jordan Peterson. You know who Paul Marshall also is? He's the father of a musician named Winston Marshall. And Winston Marshall is married to Melissa Chen. So, when Bret Weinstein shows up on the Joe Rogan Meathead show, and I listen to this interview, I think that they spend 40% of the interview talking about drugs. What the hell? Anyways, maybe it's 35. No less than 30, but it feels like it's 40, especially to me. And they're saying that all drugs should be legalized because that's what they did in Portugal, and Portugal's awesome right now. So Melissa Chen is married to a man named Winston Marshall, who used to be with some musical band. But her husband's dad, basically her father-in-law, owns Sky News. Melissa Chen's father-in-law owns Sky News. Melissa Chen's father-in-law owns The Spectator. Melissa Chen's father-in-law is also the top donor to Ralston College, where the chancellor is Jordan Peterson. Now, this is all crazy shocking, okay? Paul Marshall is also one of the top financial supporters of Brexit. Now, Paul Marshall right now is 66 years old, okay? I haven't done a deep analysis into what his real motivations are. The motivations are said to be to promote English liberalism, which is more like American conservatism, I guess. Stronger citizenship, stronger national identity, maybe stronger families. I don't know. There's a lot of things in there which align with, at least in the United States, ideologically, at least we're supposed to think anyways, conservative, perhaps. And he's given a lot of money to various causes, and he has a lot of money controlling a lot of media. Now, there's a couple possibilities here. One is that it's all baloney. This whole thing is just an act. And what is really happening is he's using his billions to control the opposite side. Because, there's the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle really are the same people, more often than not. They're all people that decided to actually spend their time congregating with other people who also like to get out of the house and get away from the home and get away from the local community and learn things and then tell other people what to do. Why don't more conservatives mobilize? Well, maybe because people whose value is being at home with the family and focusing inward, that doesn't exactly line up with the people that want to, congregate with countless people and shake hands all day and create policies that determine how other people can live and what they get to keep. That's the problem. And this would be obvious if there was not a fake right. But there is, so it's not really clear. So Paul Marshall could just be part of putting on his half of the show to make the whole thing work, okay? The other possibility is that he actually thinks it is working. That he's a billionaire, he's got all this money, and he can give his billions out, or millions, he can buy media companies, and he can help British liberalism or American conservatism. He thinks he's helping, but he's surrounded by liars that know it's not going to work. So they take the money, they put on the show, his kids, his new daughter-in-law, they all get him to think it's doing something, but in reality, it's not. It's just kind of falling flat because the real conservatives aren't out there lining up around the house of Paul Marshall say, hey, give us some money so we can create a movement too. They're not there. How can you have a conservative movement if conservatives don't have movements? And if you didn't put on a fake conservative movement, it would be pretty clear that that's the case. And I think this has been ongoing for a long time right now. And it's getting worse right now. Anyways, so I don't know which of those two is true. It's possible that Paul Marshall is completely snowed by the people around him. That's possible. That's me, thinking of the best. But he might just be part of the show as well. I don't know. Sort of like Rupert Murdoch. I'm not sure Murdoch knows how his money's been used either. He might be thinking he's making a difference, but he's surrounded by people that are just taking it, and it's not really doing as good as he thinks it is, maybe. I don't know. So Paul Marshall, this billionaire, owner of Sky News, The Unheard, Spectator, GB News, and all kinds of other financial institutions, etc., and a huge supporter of Brexit, financial supporter of Brexit, and so on, said to be a Peter Thiel or potentially the Peter Thiel of London, of England, which suggests that he might have interest, at least technical interest, or interest in biological research that sort of align with Peter Thiel. Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, important person. And the father-in-law of Melissa Chen. So, with Melissa Chen being the daughter-in-law of Paul Marshall, and with Paul Marshall being the key supporter financially of this Ralston College, where now Jordan Peterson is the chancellor. Now remember, Jordan Peterson wasn't made the chancellor until 2022. And, to be fair, Paul Marshall didn't buy the Spectator until also 2022. So, it's not fair for me to then just mix things up, okay, and say that that's why Jordan Peterson got on, the only reason why, because Jordan Peterson's school, Ralston, where he's the chancellor, is now significantly financially supported by the father-in-law of Melissa Chen. However, though, it's unlikely that Paul Marshall and Jordan Peterson never connected before then. Odds are Jordan Peterson was given the opportunity and appointed as that chancellor because Paul Marshall and Jordan Peterson already had some relationship. In fact, I found this ARC or whatever it is, which shows that Paul Marshall has given Jordan Peterson and some other foundations around Jordan Peterson many millions of dollars, going all the way back to 2000, I think 17 or 18. So it's not just the college. Paul Marshall has been a long-time financial supporter of interests, which include things such as what Jordan Peterson has been advocating. And Bret Weinstein, just like Melissa Chen, has also been on the Joe Rogan show, but he's been on several times, and at least 3 or 4 times before the pandemic started, which means 2019 and earlier. And one of those 3 or 4, was with Jordan Peterson. So this means that it's likely that maybe Jordan Peterson, already in the Bret Weinstein, maybe the Eric Weinstein orbit, maybe Paul Marshall, already somewhat knowledgeable of Bret Weinstein and or Eric Weinstein. Maybe. You see where I'm going with this? And the key about this photo here that was taken on March 22nd, 2020, is Bret Weinstein reinforcing masks work. Masks work. He's wearing a bandana and goggles, and I mean, this is stupid. And you should be mad because there are people that died alone behind glass and plastic shields. There are people that died isolated. There are people that probably got sick because they had to wear crappy masks day after day at their place of employment. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that having to wear a face mask while working as a server at the Cheesecake Factory where my son was working hour after hour after hour after hour, played a role in the pneumonia that sent him to the hospital several weeks before he died. Probably. That was in 2022. Now, as someone who has struggled with addiction on and off, he was already predisposed. To be totally transparent here, his lungs were already damaged a little bit. All right. He had been smoking, so there are other things involved. It's not just the fact he had to wear a mask. That would be wrong. That would be incorrect and disingenuous. But it played a role. That's the truth. It did play a role. Then you go to the hospital, and then you got hospital protocols that don't let your family to come see you, at least more than one person at a time. Can't talk to the same doctor, and you can't talk to any one particular doctor or nurse with any level of repeatability. And what happens is that your loved one then becomes med-seeking and then goes into full-on relapse. And then you die 1 or 2 weeks after you leave the hospital. So there's consequences to making people afraid of the mythical RNA pandemic-causing virus. So, March 22nd, 2020. So I have a couple photos here. So 2018, we have Eric Weinstein and Melissa Chen on the right. I don't know who the woman is on the left. Amy Meck, maybe. I'm not sure. I moved the cursor around. This is from Facebook. And that's Bret Weinstein, obviously a little bit bigger than the little Melissa Chen. And they had just been on the Dave Rubin show, I think. So this is 2018. Interesting. So, okay, maybe she's just a fan, right? I mean, a lot of people have been in photos with a Weinstein. It doesn't mean, one thing leads to the next, and before you know it, you're marrying someone's son. But this is the one that I think is better. So this is Melissa Chen posting a photo on June 21st, 2019. Now, Bret Weinstein here is with a cute dog. The man on the right is Coleman Cruz Hughes. Last name Hughes. So Bret Weinstein with a dog. Okay, so maybe she just likes Weinsteins. But she's got one conference with Eric Weinstein, and they're on the Rubin Report. And yes, Melissa Chen eventually gets on the Rubin Report as well. And here she is with Bret Weinstein in June 21st, 2019, about 11 months or so before Bret Weinstein goes full goggles. Okay. That dog is Melissa Chen's dog. That's her dog. It's not just some random dog. That's her dog. So I know that's Melissa Chen taking the photo because that's her dog. So Melissa Chen has spent an extensive amount of time with Bret Weinstein and Eric Weinstein. At least several occurrences. That's more than some people see their own parents over the course of a 2-year period. This was at the Heterodox Academy Conference. Again, see, there's the problem. You got all these, like the whole Brownstone thing. Brownstone, Clownstein. People who focus on the most important people right in front of them don't live a life of touring the world and going to conferences and coming up with, smart ideas about how to improve the world, and then bitch all day about, what the government needs to change and then what people need to accept and how they're just so much smarter than everyone else. So you just have more people that like to think a lot and go around thinking that they're really incredibly smart and, being proud and being part of selfies and, creating policy that everyone else is going to have to submit to. The left and the right are both left. And there is no right. You're either someone that wants to get out of the house, think a lot, and tell other people what they need to be doing, or you're not. I think that's the political divide for real. So, it's her dog. And we know that Bret Weinstein was on a Joe Rogan podcast before 2019. He was on 4. And the only one that he had another guest on, aside from his wife, was the one with Jordan Peterson. And we know Jordan Peterson, as I just said before, at this Ralston, and we know that Jordan Peterson at Ralston as the chancellor there, okay, is now effectively getting most of his money from Melissa Chen's father-in-law. You see where this is going? Melissa Chen is a key part of the intellectual dark web. In fact, it's possible that a lot of the money for the intellectual dark web is Melissa Chen's or her father-in-law. Now, Eric Weinstein already had a lot of money through his connection with Peter Thiel. Bret Weinstein, well, he settled for $500,000 after getting kicked out of his school, but I think Bret Weinstein has not been that successful. Bret Weinstein and Eric Weinstein's father, though, remember, he was the first United States intellectual property lawyer hired by the United States Department of Justice Antitrust Division of all time, and he was a key person involved in the thalidomide story. The thalidomide story, which shaped the 1952 Kefauver-Harris FDA amendments. You know, with the main person, Estes Kefauver, was poisoned to death and assassinated on the floor of the United States Congress 12 weeks before JFK was assassinated. Probably because Estes Kefauver was the most popular person, aside from Kennedy, in Congress. They would have wanted him to become the VP. They might have even wanted him to become the next president. So they killed him ahead of time, and they killed him also probably because of something involved in his knowledge of or his contributions to those FDA amendments. Those same FDA amendments where the intellectual property lawyer for the United States Department of Justice Antitrust Division working for Robert F. Kennedy, by the way, was the dad of Bret and Eric Weinstein. And you can see the plane ticket on Ancestry.com where their dad flew to the Netherlands just in time to get information about what thalidomide was doing over there and then bring that information back as part of the hearings in 1962 for those FDA amendments. The FDA amendments which added efficacy, the thing that they are all right now trying to get rid of. They all want to get rid of efficacy. They all basically want to get rid of the FDA and turn you and your children into the status of experimental test animals. So that's her dog. This is Bret Weinstein on March 22nd, 2020. Now, just 5 weeks beforehand, we know that Melissa Chen is on the Joe Rogan Experience, mostly talking drugs. She's also having too much caffeine, sweating, and stripping. I kid you not. Come on. It's done up so much that they released video clips that suggested that Joe Rogan was sexually attracted to her. That was done for a reason. It was all orchestrated. She even dropped a hint. Remember, this is February 14th, 2020. She even dropped a hint that, oh yeah, don't forget about that Chinese scientist that worked with viruses that was arrested in Canada. She actually was implying Guangao Qiao, Xiangguo Oh, that's curious. The scientist that worked with Francis Plummer, who was assassinated. The one that also worked with years ago, Mark
Weinberg
was one of the two scientists that put their name on the paper, which showed that Judy Mikovits' work was wrong. And Mark
Weinberg
was also, I think, assassinated on a beach. And the other guy, Dr. Quanteh Zheng, Kuantheh, last name Zheng, was, I believe, thrown off the top level of a multi-level parking garage to his death. So all of the opposition to Judy Mikovits' work, who seemed to be a hero by Children's Health Defense, were assassinated. But anyways, Guangao Qiao being hinted at here, and it's noteworthy because you know who reminded the world of the Chinese scientist on Twitter being detained in 2019 and used as a suggestion that China was smuggling Ebola back and forth? Oh, that's right. It was Kyle Bass. good long-term friend of, there you have it, Steve Bannon. And she even interviewed Kyle Bass, I think 3 months after this, 2.5 months after this show, being on Joe Rogan. Both totally on the same page. China bad, China bad, China bad. China thinks the long game. China's going to fight for the future. China's going to control everything. Look at a population pyramid, guys. China is up the creek. I'm not a military strategist, but you know what you need if you want to conquer the world? People. And right now, China's not making new people. They are heading towards losing half of their living population by the end of this century. It is the biggest, number-wise, population catastrophe on the planet. Now, the rate of population decline in Japan is worse, but as far as number go, China is huge. I don't know how they're going to take over the world if there's no more Chinese. And if they're thinking the long game, they should be having lots of kids, and they're not. They almost can't. Their population pyramid is so badly inverted. And all of these people turn the other way at the nation of India, which is having a population growth go down, but it's not nearly as bad as any other country. The next 50 years are India's. It's already just about baked into the cake, folks. China, Russia, the United States, a lot of nations in Europe all have the same problem. We're all screwed because of our population pyramids. And India will get there someday, but right now they're not there yet. And it's funny how they want the Russians mad at the Americans mad at the Russians or the Chinese mad at the United States. And all three countries have the same problem and are in no position to invade the other demographically when you consider a population pyramid. But you know who is in a position to expand? India. And that's right. Guang Qiao was primarily identified as a Chinese spy because Indian military intelligence. And the work of Danny Shoham out of Israel. But let's get back to the dog. Okay? Because, I just downloaded a crap load of things from Facebook. So it's not all in order. Oh, yeah, and remember, Melissa Chen is also either a boss or a subordinate of Piper Stover, the very person that was assigned to handle my friend, and hopefully your friend as well, Jonathan Kuya, PhD, Gigahome Biological. And Piper Stover also introduced other people to Jonathan Kuya that wound up being potentially problematic. And Melissa Chen is there at this Strategy Risks organization. Now, this organization, I don't have information of them existing before 2023. I'm not 100% sure how far back Piper Stover Lounsbury and Melissa Chen go. Not sure. But if I were to start a company or an organization tomorrow, odds are I would start it with people that I already know and trust. I'm not going to just email strangers on the internet and say, hey, join me for a venture. So either they do know each other well enough to invest their life's energy in this venture together, or someone else knows both of them who trusts both of them enough to put them both into this organization. It's one or the other. This is 2024, and this is Melissa Chen's husband playing the guitar with Eric Weinstein. Now, her husband used to be with a relatively popular pop band. They kicked him out because of his political views. He's against wokeism. Do you know most conservatives don't really think about it? Most people, you're trying to take care of your house. You're trying to, maybe you work as a carpenter. You don't have these ideas rattling around your head all day that people who have gender dysphoria are ruining your life. You just don't think about it. You're focusing on your own stuff. Much less you're going to drop everything and start a movement so that you let everyone know how afraid you are of it and then tell stupid jokes about it. It's an act being put on by other people who are effectively just as part of this belief that we all need to get together and engineer a better world that can tell everyone what to do. He just have slightly different nuanced views on how that's done. But anyways, he's probably just another humanist leftist. Here she is in 2021 with James Lindsay. She's an atheist, but she'll say Jesus Christ. God forgive me. When it comes to making fun of trolling people online. That's real classy. But it's this one here. So March 10th, 2020, Melissa Chen is posting photos of her dog wearing a hazmat suit, a hazmat bubble suit. Now, I'm not sure it's a true bubble suit. So Melissa Chen's dog is wearing a hazmat bubble suit on March 10th, 2020. 12 days later, Bret Weinstein is walking around with goggles and a bandana. Ready to rob a bank? Oh, that's right. Bret Weinstein, a year before this, is photographed holding the same dog. Holding that dog. That's the dog in the photo. Isn't it amazing that one photo captures the first dog to wear a hazmat suit to not get coronavirus and be pushed on the internet, and the first man to be wearing shop goggles and a bandana, with a show on the internet also telling you masks definitely work. This RNA pandemic is serious stuff. That one photo. That poor dog. I bet you that thing is so hot. Thing is like, what's this all about? Anyone who knows dogs knows where that mouth is going to go. It's unbelievable. And you can find the tweets of Melissa Chen, ratting on people. That guy looks familiar. Just ratting on people for questioning masks in March and April 2020. She is very, very pro-masks. She's actually out there saying that many Americans will die because the Chinese are hoarding masks. Somehow Americans don't know how to make a mask. Can make aircraft carriers, but we don't know how to make a mask. You can't give people simple instructions on YouTube, even if it was an effective thing against the deadly RNA pandemic that's coating the entire planet. You can't just give people some instructions. Really, it's that amazing that you. But it's very specifically, it's China. China bad. China's doing this. China lab leak. Dirty Chinese. Chinese government. Chinese CCP. China in the United States government. China controlling U.S. politicians. China this. China that. China. And let me repeat. She also said China. 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 Meanwhile, there's nobody born in China in a key position in the United States federal government. But there's a lot of people from India. We got Jayanta Bhattacharya. We got a guy from Egypt or England running the FDA. We had another person from India running the FDA. Sieber was Prakash. And then we have Raja Krishnamurthy. Ami Barrett, I think, was born in the United States. We have an Indian man running the FBI. We had the first ambassador to India. Oh, that's right. That's right. The first ambassador to India, who was also Indian, Richard Verma. Oh, and that's right. Richard Verma was on a podcast with Melissa Chen's colleague, Piper Stover Lounsbury, in November of 2019, bashing China. And this isn't about the Chinese or the Indian people. Look, most people on the planet are just trying to get by, okay? This whole thing of you got to worry about Chinese people, you got to be worried about people who look like this and people who have this religion. And it's like, no. You look at strong communities like Shaker community, for example, they focus inward. And they tend to have a fair amount of kids. And you know what? The world's going to do what the world's going to do. You don't find Shakers. Oh, my goodness, somebody out there is gay. It's this social media apparatus telling who we need to what we need to lose sleep over and who we need to fear and what we need to fight. The only thing that most of us need to fear, well, first off, is bees. But, after that, Judgment Day. And I don't mean the end of the world type. I mean our own. What can we do to be better? How are we failing? Look at all of our sins. Look at all the things that people around us need that we don't think about because we're so saturated in our own selfish to-do list. That's what we need to be worried about. That is one of the evils that's brought to us by social media. By the way, Melissa Chen right now, she's married. She's living in England. So she wasn't born in the United States. Oh, she also does not have a Singaporean accent. There is such a thing as a Singaporean accent. It's not very strong, but there's certain things that people who are born in Singapore and have lived their whole lives in Singapore, at least up until the 18, will tend to say, and I see none of that in her dialogue. Which means after being born in Singapore, she's probably lived, I'm going to guess, she could have moved to Taiwan. I don't know why she would. It's also possible, I think it's likely that she spent a lot of time growing up in Vancouver, a place in Canada. I found some pictures of her, a younger self, lots of mountains nearby, definitely not Singapore. And then from there, she probably went to the University of Boston, came to the United States, stayed in the United States for a while. Oh, this is my country right now. So many freedoms. They don't kill you for chewing bubblegum like they do in Singapore or something like that. But now she had to leave over in England. America's losing its way. The whole time, never talking about the drug epidemic in the United States of America, the largest loss of life event in the history of the United States. Nope, we just need to be worried about China. And one of the reasons why we had that event is because people...
He was comparing the way they handled drug dealers in China with a swift, fair trial. Yeah. Was he saying Singapore?
No, but
that's how they do it in Singapore. Swift, fair trial, and the death penalty is what he said.
Yeah. There's a resurgence of this in Asia. You see it in the Philippines as well. So
yes.
Duterte's has this extrajudicial drug war that he's been launching. So
I understand the concern with the plight. I understand that people are really worried that people getting addicted to drugs ruin their lives. It devastates families, people dying of overdose.
Largest loss of life event in the history of the United States, and it's all about drugs.
This is from fentanyl and all these different hazards that are associated with drug use and drug dealing. I understand that. But this sort of...
Or he just takes the money not to talk about it.
Archaic way of handling it and death penalty talk in 2020.
I know.
Like it's...
And one country completely decriminalized all drugs, right? Was it Portugal?
Portugal, yeah. And they had
Some good
spectacular results.
Yeah.
Low everything. Lower incidence of HIV infection, lower drug addiction, lower overdoses, lower everything, lower crime.
Right.
I just don't.
So there you have it. It's a huge part of the Joe Rogan platform is do drugs. That's really a big part of his platform. Do drugs. And he's against the war on drugs. Everything should be legalized. Drug use is cool. People are higher performing with drugs. You too can be rich and look good with drugs. Your muscles will be good with drugs. Do some more drugs. Everyone does drugs. A time where he got people to stop thinking about, well, maybe we should be a little bit more vocal about this drug problem. Joe Rogan played a key part in targeting that population and disarming them while the United States has its largest loss of life event in its history. Pushed here, obviously also celebrated by Melissa Chen. But at least her dog was protected. So that's my little rant for tonight. Wow, that already went 54 minutes. Just show the photos again. Just to recap for the camera. Melissa Chen and her dog. March 10th, 2020 in the hazmat suit. Protecting the dog from the coronavirus. Melissa Chen's husband jamming with Eric Weinstein. I think remember Melissa Chen with Piper Stover used to support Jonathan Cooey. Melissa Chen, here's the interview she has with Kyle Bass. Of course, Kyle Bass was the guy who first tweeted. His tweet went viral regarding Guangao Qiao, the Chinese scientist who I believe was falsely accused of being a spy, the one that worked up in Canada. And I make that statement, and I'm going to stand by that statement because the one person that I know stood up for her, Francis Plummer, was himself assassinated in early February of 2020 in Africa. And, wow, look at this. Writing article, time to ban wet markets. March 18th, 2020 in The Spectator. How do pandemics change the way we think? This is written by Melissa Chen. Also in The Spectator, March 12th, 2020. This is the February 14th interview where she's on the Joe Rogan Experience. Here she is sharing tweets talking about Epstein and Chinese labs. What? February 7th, 2020. She even talks about things like the Chinese Thousand Talents program. I think Paul Cottrell and a few other of the fakes that, believe it or not, were obviously in contact with Steve Bannon and the Steve Bannon Network in January 2020. Here she is on the Newsmax program, but most critically, this is her, and this is proof she's friends with Bret Weinstein. And if she's friends with Bret Weinstein, then at least as of 2021, she's also friends with Robert Malone and the rest of that whole network. This story of there's a real virus, it's pathogenic, you need to be afraid, you need to wear masks and all this other crap. Don't think about the drug epidemic. It's not happening. Drugs are cool. They make you better. The war on drugs was for losers. And let's not really investigate hospital protocols. Let's just ignore the fact that they said that there was a doctor shortage, a ventilator shortage, and they encouraged everyone possible to go on supplemental oxygen, using way more oxygen than anyone is supposed to for too long a period of time, which causes acquired respiratory distress syndrome over the course of several hours, which is symptomatically identical to COVID, which then gives them an excuse to put people onto a ventilator and additional medications and possibly fentanyl till they die. And then you count it as a COVID death. They killed people. It was murder and lies. What's the difference between murder and manslaughter? If you put a plan in place that you know upon execution will lead to several 100,000 people no longer being alive, how is that manslaughter and not murder? They knew people were going to die because of the act. I don't think Bret Weinstein is so stupid that he didn't know that. They knew people would die. They rationalized that this is for the greater good, to kill enough old people and to let the drug epidemic also help out with some demographic adjustments in the United States and enable a life expectancy drop, which would not have happened if they were only killing middle-aged and older people in the United States, fixing a United States part of its own population pyramid problem and getting rid of a Social Security problem, freeing up a lot of money so that allow for people to think that the economy is doing better than it really is. They knew people were going to die. People died. This is murder. This is murder. And they both went on. One wore the bandana and the goggles. One put their dog, that dog, into a hazmat suit. And Melissa Chen took this photo. Melissa Chen shared the Chinese spy lie on the Joe Rogan Show, February 14th, 2020. And they all continue to not talk about the largest loss of life event in the history of the United States, the opioid epidemic, which in terms population adjusted, the only thing worse is the United States Civil War. How do you miss that? You only miss it if you're controlling what people know and controlling what people think. The reason why I figured this out is because, in spite of how it looks, I don't use social media. I don't use social media. I don't get on TikTok or Twitter and let it tell me what's going on. I don't use social media. I don't get into forums where other people can screw with me by working with each other behind the scenes anymore. I am not on social media. I find the things that I search for after I think about what I want to search for. I'm using the internet for fetch and collect. I'm using the internet to look into archives. I'm telling the internet what I want. I'm not using social media. That's why I can figure this stuff out. And the less I've used social media, the faster I get to work. I have whittled down the people that I listen to I could probably almost count them on one hand at this point. And it's not that those are the only smart people, but I'm telling you what. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. I'll talk about that one tomorrow. It's getting really hot in my room. I love you guys very much. Thanks for listening. Murder and lies. God bless.